every time I've made successful transformations, it's always been because I've been open to learning, and I've also embraced the change. I realized that I needed to become the person that could do this. And so I wasn't trying to justify who I am and trying to do that. It was embracing change, was embracing personal transformation. And I've always been very successful and I've done that.
I think it's a combination of two things. There's a lot that you can do with your mindset and how you see yourself. And then there's also, as you mentioned, the hard-won experience component of it. And I think a lot of that's to do with, and to your credit, you actively went out and you sought coaching, you sought leadership, and you sought to build the skills that you recognized were lacking in you as a probably a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed CEO. Welcome to the Legacy in the Making show. I'm your host, LA's foremost success coach, Tony Marie Torrey. I interview leaders and influencers who've gone beyond the superficial markers of success and claimed true fulfillment by leveraging their positions to create positive and profitable changes in their businesses and beyond. They share their stories and offer real-world, boots-on-the-ground experience that translates into practical advice to apply to your own journey. I invite you to this injection of wisdom and inspiration so you can prevail and leave your own lasting legacy. Welcome to the Legacy in the Making show. I'm your host, Tony Marie Torrey, and I am here today with one of my favorite people, Paul G. McManus. And Paul is the co-founder and CEO of More Clients, More Fun, a lead generation and content marketing agency, which has served over 500 coaches, consultants, and advisors since 2015. He's also the author of The Smart $1 Million Producer, The Secret Playbook for financial professionals to land high-value clients using LinkedIn. Paul is also a client, a friend, and a colleague, and I am just so excited to share his wisdom with you here today. Paul, welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to do what you're doing today.
Thank you for having me on your show, Tony Marie. Appreciate it. We've known each other, I think, now since 2014, 2015. It's been a while.
Yep.
So you knew me before I started my current business. You knew me back when I was running a 3-generation family-owned company. Mm-hmm. And since then, in 2015, I decided to get into the world of coaching and marketing. I like to think that I started with small thoughts, although my small thoughts turned out to be quite smart. In other words, when I first got my coaching certification, I was a book yourself solid coach. And immediately I'm like, who am I to hang up my shingle online? Who am I to position myself as this expert in coaching or in marketing? And so that was kind of a small thought. And so I decided that, okay, I'm just going to make my little home here on LinkedIn. I'm just going to figure out LinkedIn. I'm going to be known as the guy that can help people with LinkedIn. And so that was immediately I did that. That was back in 2015. And that turned out to be probably the smartest decision that I've made in the past 5 or 6 years. Because what I've learned since then is that what really separates you from the crowd, what really gets you traction much quicker is specificity. Mm-hmm. And so my specificity was I didn't just help people with business development or marketing. I didn't just help them with online marketing. I helped them use LinkedIn to land high-value clients. Originally, when I started, I was focused on helping other coaches and consultants use LinkedIn. But really, since 2016, my market found me. And the market that found me was really high-end, elite-level financial advisors. So since 2016, I've been working with financial advisors pretty much exclusively. And I have some pretty amazing stories of helping them, become millionaires in their own right. And so it's been a fun ride.
Yes, and it's been really fun to watch you grow, evolve, and change. And There was a point in time there where things weren't so fabulous, right? When you were making that transition. And that was when I had the honor of being your coach and helping you shift some things. And one of the things that I love about what we did when you came to me and we were teasing apart the challenges that you were having with your transition and some historical stress related stuff is that we came up with this vision for you, I think before you had really even fully crystallized what it was that you were doing.
It's interesting, right? I mean, you, like anybody, you start out bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about what you're going to accomplish, and then pretty quickly, reality comes knocking, and as a startup, right? So, I literally started with just an idea. I had a $20 a month budget. I used to run a company that had resources, and then, I literally dropped out without any parachute. And so it's like, okay, I got $20 a month to make this work. I got a Zoom account. I got, I think, a MailChimp account. And I just lived off the land in terms of free resources, free LinkedIn account, everything. And in that process, I had 2 business partners. So I was fortunate to get started with 2 other people, one of which, her name was Anna, and she was my mentor at the time. She knew a lot about online marketing, so that really helped me speed up my process. But we had a very flawed model, at least at that time. And so the model that we wanted to make happen, or at least I wanted to make happen, was to immediately go into group coaching. And by that, I mean skip, one-to-one coaching, skip one-to-one services, and really build out this online model where people would subscribe to a membership center, would do group coaching, they have a training center. I mean, I think a lot of people nowadays that's the dream, right? That's how it's a passive income, it's leveraged income, it's all these things. And so it's very appealing for a lot of people, including myself. What I realized, though, during that first year or two, through a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, was that while you can make it work, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to consistently attract clients in enough numbers so that you can make the numbers fit. And we were charging something like $100 a month for the subscription. And when you take out the cost of advertising, the cost of delivering services, 2 different partners, at the end of the month, I wasn't left with too much money in my hand.
And it wasn't you either, right? Because you had your wife as well. It wasn't like it was just you flying by the seat of your pants. You had other people dependent on you.
Yes, I'm the primary breadwinner in my family. And so here I am, I don't have children, or I have 4-legged children, but I don't, so I had to essentially provide for myself and my wife. But anyways, stress started mounting over time as I saw that the model that we had set upon wasn't paying the bills sufficiently, and it was proving to be harder work than I had imagined. And I had no interest in getting a job. I mean, I was dealing with a lot of stress with just thinking, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to avoid getting a job? How am I going to do all these things? And it was just becoming very distracting, right? It's like, it's funny, in those moments where you need to do more, stress can completely derail you. And so you end up doing less. I could see it was just kind of a vicious cycle. And so you and I had been friends for a while, and I reached out to you, and you helped me turn it around. And I'll let you jump in there, but I
brainwashed him. I'll admit it. We spent some time together, and we teased apart the aspects of the things that were stressing you out, came up with kind of a new plan and a new vision for you, right? And then one of the things I do with a lot of my clients is I do what I call the under the hood work. And then I sent you home with a specific hypnosis recording for you to listen to consistently. And in that hypnosis recording, we included this vision that you had come up with as we were going through the process and taking the stress off things. Paul, you got more clarity, right, on what it was that you really wanted to create. And you had this lovely vision of coasting along on a luxury yacht. And that's kind of where it started. And then that vision evolved as we progressed through the work we were doing. And you realized that you were not alone on that luxury yacht, that you were fishing and that you had big nets and you were raking in the nets. And inside those nets were dollars, and lots of them. And then the other piece of it was that you realized that actually it wasn't just you fishing, that you had your clients fishing too, and that you were teaching them how to fish.
Yeah, no, it was the perfect metaphor. And, to me, just the idea of a yacht just represents, it's not that I want to be a yacht owner, because I think that would be probably not the smartest thing for me to do, but just the idea of the yacht has always appealed to me, just as a metaphor. Ultimately, where I get the most joy is in helping others really create freedom, and the way that I help them create freedom is through business development, through marketing, through systems, through coaching, to help them go from where they are to just a lot more abundance. And so it was just the perfect metaphor. And after that, even though still trying to figure things out for myself, it's interesting that metaphor kept me moving forward, even during my lowest points, if you will. It ended up where just shortly afterwards and over time, opportunities started presenting themselves. I got better and better at my craft. I switched my business model. Really, since then, and I have 100% confidence that what I'm doing is the right thing, and that I'll never have to go and get a job and work for someone else. So life's pretty good.
Yeah, the cold butt in the pit of the stomach for every entrepreneurial spirit out there, I think, is the day job.
I would rather work 80 hours for myself than 40 hours for someone else, right?
Yes. Yeah, I totally get it.
So we've all experienced together this global pandemic. And the people that I've been working exclusively with for the past 3 or 4 years now is financial advisors, specifically ones that are focused on life insurance and advanced tax planning and things of that nature. In their case, COVID-19 and the shutdowns have completely disrupted their ability to grow their business. And the reason for that is that most of them, or many of them, are used to doing networking in person, doing dinner seminars where they invite people out, to a dinner event, and they pay for it and they essentially do a presentation. And those are probably the two most common ways that they had in their toolkit to bring on new clients. Take all that away, and they had to come online. Some had dabbled online, some were successful, but I think the majority had avoided doing things online, and they had no other choice but to embrace it, which was good for me from a very selfish personal standpoint, because I was already helping advisors specifically online, specifically on LinkedIn, be very successful. I had some amazing success stories with advisors, helping them go from making a couple $100,000 of commission a year to making a couple $1 million of commission. And so I knew what I was doing. I had built a reputation for myself in the financial services industry for being able to help them. Since June, I've probably had the best business of my life, helping them specifically use LinkedIn to prospect, to build their brand online, and to essentially land what I call high value clients.
It is a great testament to understanding how, when you really do get in alignment with what it is that you're supposed to do and you continue on that path, that oftentimes what happens is that you find yourself being poised to take advantage of situations that otherwise for other people appear to be extremely difficult. Mm-hmm. And there's always opportunity in crisis. And I think so much of how it is that any of us respond and bounce back to this is to do with the luck which comes to those who are prepared, and you had a lot of preparation, and then just how you think about these things, whether you look at this as a terrible, horrible thing, or whether you look at this as some opportunity to take a step back, take a look at what it is that you've been doing with your life, with your business, with your career thus far, and see what this is calling forth in you. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that I was well prepared. And so, I didn't have to scramble. I mean, one of the reasons that I got so many new clients was that other marketing organizations in the industry, they were trying to figure stuff out. They had spent so much time helping advisors with dinner seminars that, when suddenly they shifted gears and said, hey, we can teach you how to do things on LinkedIn, they had no credibility. They were struggling. They were trying to find solutions. and they were giving their advisors a lot of bad advice. And so because I'd built up the reputation over a number of years, it was very natural for people to trust me and to work with me. I think for me, what was interesting, just as a maybe an individual level, as the demand for my services surged, I've always had the mindset that I'm a leader, I'm a CEO, I do work with people one-to-one, but primarily where my strength is in more high level, bringing teams together and helping teams manage processes. And so even though my business grew quite dramatically and rapidly, I had that skill set as well, which is to bring the right people. I quickly hired people. I quickly was able to train them effectively. And so we were able to grow with the surge in demand quite well with very minimal hiccups.
I'd love to hear more about that, because I'm pretty sure many of our legacy makers would like to have that problem where they're in a situation where they need to scale. And oftentimes that is a place, having worked with many founding CEOs, as we do reach these places in our business's growth trajectory where our inability to scale actually impacts our ability to take things to the next level. So what are some tips and tools and keys you could give someone who's hoping to be in that position where they're going to need to take things to the next level?
I don't know that I have an easy answer, because I can give some advice, obviously, or definitely, but I don't know if I have an easy answer. It also comes down to preparation, right? And so my previous life wasn't running this 100-plus-year-old company that had 15, 20 employees at any given time as the CEO. And while the service that we provided them was very different, it was my laboratory. It was a place that I learned. I remember when I first started, and this was right out of college, and it was a family business. So yes, nepotism has its place. I came in, I wanted to improve things. I saw so many problems, but I didn't have the people skills at the time. And so I ended up alienating most of the existing employees, and half of them either left over the course of the next year, or the other half weren't all that happy with me. And so I made it my job to become a much better leader. And I just took it as a challenge that I would study and I'd learn and I would practice. And I did that. And so I got into Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I got into a bunch of other things. And I'm really proud of the fact that I believe I became an excellent leader over the subsequent years, something where that now is a key strength for me. And so when this opportunity came around, really this past June, and my business was growing, one of the people that I was partnered with, his question for me, because he hadn't known me in that role, his question for me was, can you handle this? Because he was worried about letting people down or not being able to scale. And that was, I remember so clearly, that was the thing. I have a very strong belief in my ability to do this. And it was true. I knew it because from hard-earned experience, have this skill set. And so I had a very strong belief that I could be successful, and it proved itself out. And so I think going back to the question of mindsets, really it's what, your identity of who you believe to be oftentimes has a strong influence over the results that you see.
I so agree with you about the identity component. And it can oftentimes be the piece that is the most difficult for us to shift, yet has the greatest rewards once we do. And oftentimes it is just, I think it's a combination of two things. There's a lot that you can do with your mindset and how you see yourself. And then there's also, as you mentioned, the hard-won experience component of it. And I think a lot of that's to do with, and to your credit, you actively went out and you sought coaching, you sought leadership, and you sought to build the skills that you recognized were lacking in you as a probably a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed CEO.
The owner's son too, right? And I remember it then, and every time I've made successful transformations, it's always been because I've been open to learning, and I've also embraced the change. I realized that I needed to become the person that could do this. And so I wasn't trying to justify who I am and trying to do that. It was like, it was embracing change, was embracing personal transformation. And I've always been very successful and I've done that. I'll point out that the one skill that I've really further developed, and this might be more useful for people that don't necessarily have that experience that I did, is that this year I've really become that much better at working with virtual assistants or executive assistants. And that too is a skill set. That's something that I think especially for a founder or any leader, I mean, really regardless of the size of your company, whether you're kind of more in that just getting started or whether you're already very experienced and successful, your ability to work with an executive assistant effectively is something that makes a huge difference on your productivity. And especially as you're scaling, your ability to take on more without becoming overwhelmed or stressed out in the process. Mm-hmm. The metaphor that I love is kind of like it's a tennis metaphor where at some point you have so many balls coming at you that it just gets exhausting to try to have to return all the balls. But when you see that when you can hire and train and work with an executive assistant, and now you don't have to return all the balls and you can focus on the ones that are really more in your sweet spot, that's one of those skill sets that is incredibly important.
I totally agree with you. One of the things that I notice with many of my founding CEO clients is that initially when they started up, they had to wear a lot of hats because they were chief cook and bottle washer. And then they reach a point in their growth where they maybe have some people under them, but oftentimes people don't start out with that executive assistant hire that you're talking about, which I actually think should be one of your very first hires in your business. But oftentimes people hire for like technical skill or whatever, also important. But then you find yourself in the position as a CEO where you're still doing a lot of the day-to-day operational things that you no longer should be doing as you become a stronger leader and voice and decision maker for your company and for your population of employees. Mm-hmm. And so I love what you're saying about that. Have you got any specific tips for what you found worked well when you were hiring for that role?
I consider myself a lifelong learner. I love to read books, especially about business. And I love to, anytime I see a problem or challenge, I like to, get books about it so I can figure it out, right? I mean, you can learn so much by experience, but you can also speed up that cycle by learning from other people. And so one of the books that I got this past year that I recommend to anybody is this one right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's by Michael Hyatt. And it's a book called Your World-Class Assistant. And so I've had assistants before, and I've had mixed results. And this was previous to reading this book. And so I just had the mindset that this is something that I need to get better at and I want to get better at. And so I started by reading this, and literally this hire that I've had, her name is Virginia. I've hired a lot of people in the past, but she's probably been my best hire to date. And I think I just came in it with the mindset of, how to handle the relationship well. And it's remote. She's out in, she was in New York originally, now in Texas. I'm in California. So it's a completely remote relationship. It's been a game changer. I mean, the other aspect of that is that I have a strong belief that I can train someone to do the job, even the job that I typically do. And so I've essentially been able to train her on most of the things that I had been doing, which she does just as well, if not better now. And essentially, it's freed up my time to focus on those higher value activities that really drive the needle further. So if you don't have experience, get the right resources. I recommend that book. The other one, and this is, I think, maybe interesting for viewers, is, it's where do you find the right people? And I've tried a variety of sources. I've tried going overseas. I've hired some people from the Philippines before. Up until now, always with a little bit of disappointment. And so in this case, I've been hiring American. I've been hiring people that in the US. And in my mind, I wanted someone who had flexibility, could work from home, but was experienced. And I found this site called HireMyMom.com, because just theoretically, it seemed to make sense, right? It's like you have these women who, have these great experience and careers, but because of life circumstances, they're at home. And so they work remotely, but they're very knowledgeable and experienced. And so it worked out very well.
Yeah, I love HireMyMom.com, and I've recommended that to any number of my clients because I think you're right. There's just some cultural thing that's happening there that's really beautiful, and probably even more so since the pandemic. There's probably even more resources available there of people that are having to stay home to school their children. and probably more women going, oh, whatever job it was that I was in that demanded me being there in person, I no longer want to do. And
Yep.
they're just, they have a breadth of experience. And so, yeah, and we have by no means have any like financial affiliation with them,
Yeah.
although maybe we should try to.
Yeah. And it's interesting because about a year or two before I'd used them and I made a bad hiring decision. But this time they had this advanced service where you could pay them, I think it was like $500, and they would do the screening for you.
Oh.
So they actually become like your HR department. They do the screening and then they give you a Zoom recording of like, 4 or 5 people who they think, given your description, would meet your needs. And so I had 4 or 5 people and I could tell that there was one that really stood out to me, and that was the one that I hired. I think the other thing is, I know we all have constraints, but being willing to invest in professional services and experts that make things happen that much more quickly for you, but also can help you get those better results. That's also been a shift for me this year, is that I've invested more in other people to help me get where I want to go that much faster.
I love that. And I do want to just say, having watched you as a client, as a friend, and as a colleague, because we have done some projects together, I can definitely bear witness to the fact that you have grown massively as a leader, and grateful you've introduced me to some of my best clients, because we've just got this great co-working relationship that, we know that we've got complementary skills and can help various groups of people. I help with the mindset and the confidence, and, you're working with visibility components, and I help people overcome their blocks with visibility. And so together we're really having some fun helping, in particular at the moment, advisors just take advantage of this shift and positioning themselves as influencers.
Yeah. And if I want to ask you a question, because we have been working on this project together, Linked Influencer, and part of that is doing exactly what you just said, which is I'll get them set up with, working with you to do a recording and to do all these things. But can you share just some of the challenges and struggles that you've seen in terms of visibility? And
I've been through my own journey with this. I think I've shared with you that when I was a little girl, I was pretty vivacious, and I used to get into trouble for speaking up too much or being too noisy in class. And I actually had one teacher who taped my mouth shut and stuck me in the corner. Literally, if there'd been a dunce's cap, she probably would have put that on me as well. But it was that kind of like shame, humiliation component that is totally illegal now. But back in the day, that was something that teachers could get away with because there was no reportability. And it actually happened twice. And so I have this little girl inside of me that thinks I'm going to get into trouble and I'm going to be shamed and embarrassed every time I open my mouth. And so I've had to do a lot of work with that and with her to make sure she doesn't put the kibosh on my ability to be in front of the camera. And so that's probably a unique story to me. I don't know that that's happened to many people, but we do know that there is a huge fear associated with public speaking, with visibility. And I believe a lot of that ultimately comes down to it is a survival threat. Because anytime we potentially do something that other people, our tribe, disagrees with, we risk our very survival in ancient times. And so those parts of our brains still activate and go, warning, Will Robinson, warning, this is a dangerous thing to do. Don't do it. Yeah. And so mostly what we're working with is just they're really worried they're going to say and do the wrong thing. They don't know what to say. They have no idea what kind of content they're going to share. And in particular, in the financial advising world, you've also got the compliance components and things like that to take into account as well. And then the other thing I would say is just really overly perfectionistic. It's hysterical. We advise people on how to really make this pretty simple and easy, right? Because it can be very simple and easy. And yet almost always the first time people just put in so much
effort to try and get it right, including writing incredibly long scripts for themselves. It's like, no, do it with bullet points, because when you talk extemporaneously, trust me, you know your topic.
Exactly. And what better person than you, though, to help them with that because of your own personal experience, and might be different reasons for it, but you're an excellent guide there. And it's so important because I can do some basic speech coaching. I can give people feedback, but I don't have the skill set like you do to go that level deeper and to get into those deeper level concerns and fears and triggers and whatnot. And so part of what I do in helping people get more clients, especially high value clients using LinkedIn, is that they have to be willing to be visible. They have to, for the most part, be willing to be on camera. And the reason for that is that in the online world, you have to be able to create an impression. You have to establish, it sounds cliche, but it's so true, know, like, and trust, right? If you don't establish know, like, and trust, those higher value clients are not going to give you the time of day. So you have to show them before they ever schedule time with you, before they ever come to your office, that you're someone that they want to know, that they feel that they like, and that they feel that they can trust. And there's nothing that compares to being on camera. And so the second part of that, though, and you mentioned this, is that if you come with a scripted version of what you want to say, it comes across as robotic. And so you're not, you might be saying all the right words, but you're not going to establish know, like, and trust, because now you come across the wrong way. You're robotic. I don't relate to you as a human being. And so the value that you bring and that we bring in helping people be natural, and then helping them use that content to be visible in places like LinkedIn, it's so valuable.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would say is really valuable is the accountability component. Like, we all know the difference between our body when we are responsible for our own physical fitness, as opposed to the kind of body we create when we have a personal trainer that we work with twice a week. Right? At least I know for me, I'm definitely noticing the absence of Orange Theory fitness. When I had an appointed time and I would go with my daughter. And so, and another person that I had an agreement with. And so, and you and I, we've talked about this too, because we don't always do as much of our own content marketing as we could. So Paul and I actually do this together now in order to be able to create our content too. So totally. we definitely are walking our talk when it comes to this, in terms of A, the problems, and B, the solution.
Well, I think we created a whole new service by the fact that we needed it for ourselves.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is the reason why we did it, is because, we're solving problems. You've solved the problem in terms of helping people expand their network on LinkedIn, create meaningful connections, and setting appointments through that process. And then we wanted to amplify that. And one of the reasons why we needed to do that is to make sure that we hit that know, like, and trust component. Do you want to talk about the third piece of the trilogy?
Sure. Yeah.
Might as well while we're here.
Sure. It's a piece of software. It's called More Clients, More Fun Club. You can find it at moreclientsmorefunclub.com. Essentially, it is a piece of software that helps people get up to 10 times more visibility on LinkedIn. Essentially, we figured out the LinkedIn algorithm and we use it to our advantage. And so anytime that people that are part of More Clients, More Fun Club post on LinkedIn now, they get up to 10 times more visibility. They get up to 10 times more people viewing their videos. They get massive social proof in the form of 15 to 30 people liking it, giving genuine comments, having discussion. And then, that can all be repurposed and put back on the person's profile, so that when a complete stranger, possibly someone that's checking you out, shows up and, where do they go? First thing we do is we Google. And what does Google show? It shows our LinkedIn profile is either the first or second search result. I was actually looking at this just before this call. I Googled you, and your LinkedIn is first. That is literally your representation to the world. And so there's a number of different components there, but one is video content that you post there that's featured there, And the goal of that is to show you is to maximize the know, like, and trust so that people feel comfortable reaching out to you.
I have had the great opportunity to interview some pretty amazing people. I have interviewed billionaires, people that are very, very successful. Yes, as Paul, yes, present company included. And and I have to admit, it kind of feels good when I go look at their profile and connect with them on LinkedIn, and I go, my content's getting way more attention than theirs is. And some of them have whole teams that are doing it, right? And I'm like, no.
I was just looking at someone else's profile today, and someone that I'd interviewed on my podcast before, and I put the post in the post party on More Clients, More Fun Club on LinkedIn. And sure enough, it was, she had it featured on her profile. So it's the visibility that you can get from LinkedIn in all the right circles. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Please tell us where people can find you. Obviously, More Clients, More Fun Club is one of the places where your work is being brought to the world. But tell us more about where people can find you.
So, of course, on LinkedIn, I go by Paul G. McManus. The G is my middle initial. If you don't use the G, I end up being an axe murderer out of Ireland. So, branding's important. Paul G. McManus. More Clients, More Fun Club is just for the software. So if you're interested in that, you can go there. Probably the thing that I'm most proud of recently is my new book. I published this in the past 6 months, I believe.
And for those who are listening, not watching, that's called Smart Million Dollar
Producer, the secret playbook for financial professionals to land high-value clients using LinkedIn. If you're selling any type of high-value service, if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you're a financial professional, but essentially, you deal in advice or influence and you need people to trust you and you sell higher value services, I recommend it. You can find it on Amazon, but you can also go to my website, which is smartmilliondollarproducerbook.com.
You shared some really great gems with us here today. Thanks so much for taking the time. And, well, I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you tuned in to the Legacy in the Making show. If you're genuinely interested in creating positive change in your business or your life or on a more global scale, I invite you to connect with me at TonyMarie.com. That's Tony with a Y, Marie with 2 E's. When you get there, you'll find the Path to Purpose Master Plan, the truly brilliant method to make sure you're clear on why you're here. This is the absolute critical foundation to honing your instincts and leaving a legacy you'll be proud of. You can also find out about the Innate Wisdom Business Council, which is an opportunity to evolve your vision in the company of like-minded leaders, and much, much more. Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.